Starmer says there must be a U.S. backstop for any Ukraine peace deal. Sir Keir Starmer has said any Ukraine peace deal would require a U.S. backstop to deter Russia from attacking its neighbor again. Speaking after a hastily convened meeting with European leaders in Paris, the Prime Minister repeated that he would consider deploying UK troops to Ukraine in the event of a lasting peace agreement. He said a U.S. security guarantee was the only way to effectively deter Russia and vowed to discuss the key elements of a peace deal with U.S. President Donald Trump when the pair meet in Washington next week. Chancellor Olaf Scholz of Germany, and key NATO ally, said for his part that discussing sending troops to Ukraine at present was completely premature, and he was a little irritated by the topic. Sir Keir said Europe would have to do more to defend the continent in the face of the generational security challenge Russia posed. He was keen to avoid explaining exactly what he meant by a backstop, but his allies suggest this could involve air support, logistics, and intelligence capabilities. European leaders convened at the Elysee Palace to discuss concerns over the Trump administration's decision to initiate peace talks with Russia, due to start in Saudi Arabia on Tuesday, alone. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has said Kyiv did not know about the talks and would not recognize any agreement made without its involvement. Thus, officials have suggested European nations would be consulted on peace talks with Russia, but not directly involved in them. French President Emmanuel Macron posted on X in the early hours of Tuesday that he had just spoken with Trump and Zelensky. "We will work on this together with all Europeans, Americans, and Ukrainians. This is the key," he said, adding that he will continue these discussions in the coming days. The Paris summit also took place days after U.S. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said Europe would have to be primarily responsible for guaranteeing its own security going forward. Sir Keir said the U.S. was not going to leave NATO, but that it was time to take responsibility for our security, our continent. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk said transatlantic relations were in a new stage, and that the meeting had confirmed the time had come for a much greater ability for Europe to defend itself. Sir Keir has indicated any troop contributions from the UK would be part of a multinational force to police the border between Ukrainian-held and Russian-held territory. But experts say to do so effectively would be a massive undertaking that would require a large increase in defense spending. Malcolm Chalmers, Deputy Director of the Royal United Services Institute, said that unlike UN peacekeeping forces there to observe, if the force being proposed was intended to deter Russian attacks, it would be a whole different matter altogether. You need credible, well-armed forces, and you not only need frontline forces, you need backup forces and air forces and so on, he told the BBC. That's a much bigger ask. General Sir Adrian Bradshaw, a former NATO commander, said, "This cannot be a token force. It cannot be something that observes bad behavior and stands on the sideline." He told BBC Radio 4's World at One that it would have to do effectively what NATO does on its own turf, really deter aggression, and would need to be underpinned by a grand strategy for containment of Russia that would make clear any future conflict would not be contained to Ukraine. Essentially, the force needs to be large enough to defeat an incursion, he added. The former head of the British Army, Lord Dannatt, previously estimated such a force would need around 100,000 troops, with the UK contributing about 2/5. "We just haven't got that number available," he said on Saturday, adding that getting the military into shape to perform this role would come at a considerable cost.